and nothing but the truth. And they published it in New World magazine. You know, that's my position. So yes, we're still recording, glad to see that. Still got the camera running here. Sometimes it overheats and shuts down. So I have to check it every now and then. And sometimes it just seems to shut off even without the overheating problem. It just, you know, without my knowledge. It's supposed to record for a half hour straight, but sometimes it doesn't do so. So I have to periodically check the camera to make sure it's still running. But I'm glad we got this all recorded today. And that thing with the group Eclipse car passing is quite interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of things I could read into that if I wanted to get all esoteric about it. But unless it was like some kind of misuse of the Eclipse team by the SPVM, you know, it had nothing to do with this protest. It was on some kind of call that was not in any way connected to this protest. Anyhow, you know, because the way the Unitarians were acting this morning, it looked like they were actually expecting a police intervention, because they've behaved in similar ways in the past when they're expecting the police to show up. You know, Stanislaus Wikiewicz, or whatever his last name is, you know, has basically been outside the church waiting for the police to show up for previous interventions and stuff like that. You know, there's usually some Montreal Unitarian, leading member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, like John Inder, for instance, outside the Unitarian Church in Montreal waiting for the police to show up after they've called in a complaint to the police. So Mr. Stanislaus's behavior today, which includes a certain amount of low-level physical intimidation as far as I'm concerned, basically getting in my face on the sidewalk a little bit. There's no real reason for him to be on the sidewalk. Good day, sir. He was just basically trying to get into my way and possibly trying to falsely accuse me of blocking him on the sidewalk or something like that. If anyone was blocking anyone on the sidewalk, it was Stanislaus there. There's absolutely no legitimate reason for him to get in my face today, but he did a little bit. So that just shows, you know, some of the low-level tactics of Montreal Unitarians. But the higher-level tactics are misusing SPVM police power to try and shut down my protest against some of the worst forms of clergy abuse, but other injustices and abuses as well, including anti-religious intolerance and bigotry on the part of Reverend Ray Drennan and other Montreal Unitarians. How are we doing here? Oh yeah, we're still recording here. Just want to make sure this camera's still running. I think we're having a very nice protest today. I think it's going swimmingly well. And I'm willing to bet that I won't be arrested or ticketed today. I'm willing to bet that the SPVM at Station 11 now know enough about my protest, now know enough about, you know, why I'm protesting, what it's about, although really that shouldn't really come into it. Like, you know, I should be able to protest against anything and not be hassled by the police. Doesn't really matter what it's about. You know, it doesn't even have to be absolutely true what a person is protesting. You know, they have a right to protest and the police should respect it. Unfortunately, for many years, the SPVM foolishly intervened in my protest in efforts to dissuade me from protesting and even possibly throw me in jail for a couple of years for protesting. Because if I'd been convicted, for instance, of disrupting the order and solemnity of church services, I was arrested in 2000, if I remember correctly. Was it December 2000? I was arrested for allegedly violating Section 176.3 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of religious services in Canada, at the behest of Montreal Unitarian Jeremy Searle, who at the time was and currently still is, for maybe a few more days, a couple more weeks, city councillor in NDG. As far as I'm concerned, Jeremy Searle, NDG city councillor and Montreal Unitarian, misused his position to persuade the SPVM to have me falsely arrested on criminal charges in an effort to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and possibly even have me thrown in jail for up to 2 years, because the maximum sentence for disrupting the order and solemnity of church services, if you are convicted, is a 2-year jail sentence. Now, I probably would not have received 2 years if I'd been convicted, because it was a first offense, But the point here is that, you know, Jeremy Searle and other Montreal Unitarians, you know, misuse the criminal justice system by falsely accusing me of disrupting church services, even though I'm protesting outside the church very peacefully, not making a lot of noise, barely visible from within the church. You know, he misused the Canadian Criminal Code, and quite frankly, so did the SPVM and the Crown Prosecutor. I tried to persuade the Crown Prosecutors to drop the charges, but they said, oh no, we have witnesses. That included Jeremy Searle, Val Bourdon, and one other prosecution witness. The camera's overheating here. Hope it's not because of my heated rhetoric here, but I'm gonna have to shut it down and let it cool off soon. Otherwise it'll just shut off automatically. So to wrap this up, you know, I defended myself in court very successfully, and I showed how full of shit Jeremy Searle was in my cross-examination of him, and also Val Bourdon. And the Crown Prosecutor threw in the towel in the prosecution phase of the trial. I didn't even get to present a defense. I wanted to present a defense. I wanted to, like, totally demolish, you know, the misuse of the criminal justice system that had gone on. I wanted to show how Jeremy Searle and Val Bourdon and other Montreal Unitarians had misused and abused the Canadian Criminal Code in clergy sex abuse, cover-up, and denial, legal bullying. But I was prevented from presenting a defense because I was acquitted. The Crown Prosecutor, without my knowledge, moved for an acquittal a few days later after he threw in the towel, and the judge granted it, even though I had specifically said I wanted to present a defense, even though I knew I didn't have to. You know, I knew that he'd lost. He couldn't prove a single one of the 4 or 5 points of law that he needed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. He was done. But I wanted to present a defense to expose more the misuse of Canada's blasphemy law in legal bullying intended to hide such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Just got a nice friendly guy wave from the bearded cyclist there. Probably didn't show up in the video because it was out of the peripheral vision, but got a nice friendly wave there. So that's it. We're going to shut down the camera, let it cool off, and I think we'll stay here a bit longer. I'm having a wonderful day today, and I think we're doing quite nicely here today. So yeah, shutting down the camera, letting it cool down a bit. Well, wait a minute. We got somebody coming. We'll wait till this guy passes because he looks like a Montreal Unitarian, judging by that tousle of gray hair and the mustache, and the vest actually also is quite. Oh, and the. So yeah, this fellow is one of the many Unitarians who turns a blind eye to my protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and the Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, which includes, but is by no means limited to, such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. And on that note, we're turning the camera off to cool things down. I'll maybe cool down my rhetoric a little bit too, but the camera definitely needs to cool down a bit, so that's it for now. I'll start it up again after a few minutes.